Unida la costa,
unida la costa,
unida la sierra,
unida la sierra,
unida la selva contigo, Perú. Unido el trabajo, unido el deporte, unidos el norte, el centro y el sur.
Toma.
A triunfar,
peruanos,
que somos hermanos, que se haga victoria nuestra gratitud. Te daré la vida y cuando yo muera, me uniré en la tierra contigo, Perú. Te daré la vida y cuando yo muera, me uniré en la tierra contigo, Perú.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to each Rotarians around the world. Welcome to the fourth day of our project fair. Buenos días, buenas tardes y buenas noches a todos los Rotarios alrededor del mundo. Sean bienvenidos a nuestro cuarto día de nuestra feria de proyectos. We want to remind you that our fair will be held from September 24 between 12:30 and 1:45. Queremos recordarles que nuestra feria se realizará del 18 al 24 de septiembre, entre las 12:30 y las 1:45 de la tarde. Each day of the fair is dedicated to one focus area. The project will be presented on the day that corresponds to each one. Also, we will have the possibility of virtual tourism in some of the regions of our District 4455. Cada día de la feria está dedicada a un área de interés. Los proyectos serán presentados en el día que corresponde al área de interés y tendremos la posibilidad de hacer turismo virtual en alguna de las regiones de nuestro distrito 4455. The fair will be in English, and if you want the English-Spanish translation service, you can click the interpretation button found in the bar your Zoom screen. La feria será en inglés y en caso que deseen el servicio de traducción inglés-español, podrán presionar el botón de interpretación que se encuentra en la barra de su pantalla de Zoom. If you want, you can also choose to silence the original sound by selecting the option Listen to the translation only. Si desean, también pueden elegir silenciar el audio original. De esta manera, solo escucharán la traducción. The history of Lima starts not only with the foundation of the colonial city by Francisco Pizarro in 1535. The area where we can find the Lima city and province today was already inhabited thousands of years before that. The history of Lima, before the Spanish colonization, is full of rich and unique cultures, but it also reflects a long adaptation process where humankind develops its skills and makes the desert stride between the Pacific Ocean and the Andes a habitable place and a green oasis. La historia de Lima comienza no solo con la fundación de la ciudad colonial, Francisco Pizarro, en 1535. El área donde hoy podemos encontrar la ciudad y provincia de Lima ya se encontraba habitada miles de años atrás. Today, our project fair is dedicated to the focus area, education and literacy. And for the first time in any other project fair, we will have the opportunity and the pleasure to listen to Mary Jo Jean-Francois, manager of the focus area for education and literacy. Este día está dedicado al área de interés de alfabetización y educación básica. Y por primera vez en cualquier otra feria de proyectos, tendremos la oportunidad y el placer de escuchar a Mary Jo Jean-Francois, gerente del área de interés, alfabetización y educación básica.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mary Jo Jean-Francois, and I am the Area Focus Manager for Basic Education and Literacy with Rotary International. I'm very pleased to be here with you today to talk to you a little bit about my area of focus, basic education and literacy. As many of you know, basic education and literacy is a global focus for many different organizations and governments. In 2000, the United Nations developed the Millennium Development Goals, which set out several goals across several sectors to try to achieve greater equity across the world within things like health, education, water, etc. In 2000 to 2015, the global education community had a goal to achieve universal access to education by 2015. And although the global education sector and governments worked well together to try and achieve that, we did not meet our goal. However, we did enroll a lot of students into schools and increased attendance among students going into schools. One thing we noticed, though, even though more children were coming to school, is that didn't necessarily equate to students learning. And so when those goals were revisited in 2015 for the Sustainable Development Goals, we wanted to make sure quality was also included in those goals for the global community. And as a result, Sustainable Development Goal number 4 came about, which is to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. So even though we plateaued and did not achieve universal education access for students, we did want to make sure that we included that in moving into 2015. We still want to achieve universal access to education, but we also want to make sure that that access to education is a quality education so that students are learning. And when Rotary developed our areas of focus, we had these goals in mind. And so Rotary's 7 areas of focus include basic education and literacy as one of them. As many of you know, and if you've ever looked at our policy statements, you will see that within the area of focus for basic education and literacy, we have 4 main goals for Rotary. The first one is strengthening the abilities of communities to provide basic education and literacy to all. And what this means is we really want communities to take education into their own hands. Working with their Ministry of Education and local government, we want ultimately communities to be providing this quality education to students across the world. The second goal is increasing adult literacy. We also know that when adults can read, when families have higher literacy levels, that children are more likely to attend school and complete school across the world. And so we believe in educating adults, not only so that children are more likely to enroll and complete school and attend, but also because it's a human dignity issue. When a mother cannot read the instructions on her child's medication, or when a child is not adequately, or a parent is not adequately able to communicate with a child's teacher or their doctor or a government official, they live a less dignified life. And so our goal is to increase adult literacy in communities that Rotary serves. The third goal is reducing gender disparity in education. Typically, this means girls' education, but it can mean boys, depending on the community and the community's needs. However, we know that in many communities around the world, girls are less likely to go to school and less likely to complete schooling once they're enrolled. And the fourth goal is to fund graduate scholarships for career-minded professionals related to basic education and literacy. So these are our graduate level scholarships that are provided through global grants for individuals who have completed their undergraduate education and wish to continue on to have a career either in education at the macro level or in a very local level. So as many of you know, we face many challenges globally around basic education and literacy. As I mentioned earlier, although many are attending school, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're learning once they're in the classroom. And an estimated 53% of children in low and middle income countries cannot read proficiently by age 10. That includes children who are in school. And so it's really critical that we work with teachers to have a strategy around reading, writing, and numeracy, and that we provide them with different methods to teach reading to children. We're not just focused on being able to read and sound out words, but we're also thinking about things like comprehension, accelerating in reading, being able to evaluate where children are with their reading. All of those things are very important. Almost 70 million more teachers are needed by 2030 in order to provide every child with primary and secondary education. So we obviously are in the need to work with governments to hire more teachers, to train more teachers, and then I think that it's one of the roles of Rotarians to work with those teachers and find out how we can be helping them to excel in their profession. How can we be providing them with the professional development opportunities that they need in order to succeed? And in lower and middle income countries, 40% of children with disabilities are out of primary school and 55% are out of secondary school. So access to education is important for all children. And that means physical access to education. So making sure that schools are equipped and able to provide entrance and exits and places for students with disabilities to learn, but also that we're training teachers and working with teachers to know how to work with children at all different learning levels. And when possible, working with communities to make sure there are specialized schools for students with learning disabilities or physical disabilities. And 132 million girls are out of school worldwide. As I mentioned earlier, there's often an emphasis put on getting girls into school. And this is because we know that when girls are educated, there's a lot of data that supports that the gross domestic income and the GDP of a country goes up. And so we want to make sure we're investing in our girls, and also making sure that girls are not just going to school, but that they're staying in school, that they have opportunities, even amidst all the challenges that girls face in the world, things like early marriage and child labor, issues around menstruation and going to school, that girls are still able to attend school regularly and learn on a regular basis, and we're providing them with equitable opportunities. As everyone is aware, we're in the middle of a global pandemic, which unfortunately I think has set learning back quite a bit across the world. Many students in December of 2020, almost all of students in the world were out of school, many due to nationwide school closures. And so while some children were still able to attend school through various remote options, whether that was through technological options or remote learning through radio, or utilizing social sources like WhatsApp, many children were just out of school altogether. And in a recent study that was done, 5.5 million children in the United States, reading and math achievement was lower in the 2021 school year. And while we sort of expected that to happen, it was even lower than what was projected. So there's a lot of concern around that statistic and seeing those test scores coming out of schools. And in addition, and this is again not a huge surprise, but concerning nonetheless, is that children of color and children in grades 3 through 5 were most impacted. And so we, again, have to make sure that when we are considering learning options for students, wherever they are in the world, that they're equal learning options and that they're being distributed equitably among students. So let's take a look at what the foundation is doing in basic education and literacy, the Rotary Foundation. So as you can see, since 2014, we've had a nice trend upward in funding for basic education and literacy projects. And in 2020, of course, the curveball of COVID-19 was thrown at us, and a lot of projects redirected their funds or canceled their projects due to COVID-19. Either they wanted to redirect it to a more disease prevention and treatment focused project, which is completely understandable given the situation, or they needed to cancel their projects or withdraw their applications because schools were closing. What I'm hoping to see, as we're seeing in 2021, is that those numbers trend upward, because long after the pandemic is over, whenever that will be, the learning effects are going to be catastrophic for our world. And so we really need to be investing in education now to bring kids back to where they were, to catch them up, and especially to try and get kids back in school who may have had to leave school completely because of COVID-19, whether that was due to school not being in session and those students going into the workforce, or because of a loss of a parent and those children having to work or something like that as a result of COVID-19. And so children, of course, who are the most vulnerable at the time are even more vulnerable as as time goes on, and we need to make sure that we're protecting and getting those children back into school and really on the lookout for that. As you can see from our project types, teacher training is by far and away the most quote unquote popular type of Bell project. And this is probably due to the fact that we require teacher training in almost every single project. So even though you see project types listed here that are other, categorized in different ways, almost every single one of them incorporates some form of teacher training. But these teacher training components sometimes feel a little bit less of the focus, and the focus might be more on WASH activities, or maybe more focused on equipment for the schools. And in that case, we kind of categorize it as a secondary category within the global grant model. But we really want to emphasize teacher training. We know that investing in teachers is really important for impacting learning outcomes in a positive way. And that is why we try and emphasize it so much in all of our projects that are working in schools. All of our technology projects have to include some sort of a training component. And I just want to mention that within this area of focus, because it's so popular right now, and not only because of COVID, it's been popular for the last few years, is integrating technology into the classroom at different levels. We want to make sure that the training that teachers are receiving are focused on their instruction in the classroom, utilizing technology as a tool. And so we don't just want to put computers in the classroom and have the students use them in their free time, or have the students learn how to use Microsoft Word. We want technology to really shift the instruction in the classroom and either be a tool for teachers to assess where students are at in their learning, and then be able to develop a more personalized learning approach for students, or be utilizing the technology for a more blended learning approach, where they're utilizing the computers to complement what they are doing in the classroom. As you can see, we also do quite a bit of work in adult literacy, although it's a much lower level of dollars. We do see quite a few projects coming through. And I should point out as well that the WASH in Schools number here is not fully representative of WASH in Schools projects that Rotarians are doing in global grants. If you were to look at the WASH numbers, that number is much larger. These are just the projects that come in with basic education and literacy as the primary area of focus. we know that basic education and literacy projects are happening around the world. And I believe that the vast majority of basic education and literacy Rotary projects are happening outside of global grants. But the data that we have that really demonstrates where things are happening or how things are happening is through global grants. And so this table just tells you where most of the projects are occurring. And you'll notice that the yellow piece of the pie is India. And they get their own piece of the pie because they are often the largest country with the largest amount of basic education and literacy projects from year to year. And so while they're technically part of Asia, we separate them out specifically just to demonstrate how many projects are coming out of India. After that, we see Asia and the Americas coming in second. And I'd really like to see Africa, especially projects in sub-Saharan Africa, grow in the basic education and literacy portfolio, because we know that the global education data shows that there is great need there for education enhancement. And likewise, most of our projects that are taking place are humanitarian projects happening in the field. They are not, we don't have as many scholars as some of the other areas of focus. Most of these are projects that are taking place in the community working with beneficiaries. And before I wrap up, one other thing I wanted to talk about is the partnership that we have between Rotary and the Global Partnership for Education. The Global Partnership for Education is been a strategic partner with Rotary since 2020, and they are housed in the World Bank in Washington, D.C. And the Global Partnership for Education works with ministries of education from about 70 countries to fund grants for their education sector strategies. And so while there's no direct funds going back and forth through GPE and Rotary to one another, we have started doing some projects together that we're really excited about. One of those projects is in Kenya, where we just approved a global grant to do work in the northwest part of the country in a really remote region called Turkana. And what we're going to be doing in Turkana is working with teachers and families and the community to get kids back in school after COVID-19, to train teachers on how to get kids back up to speed after missing out on school due to COVID-19, and also how to plan or mitigate future risks involved with COVID-19 and education. And so that was recently approved and is being implemented now. In Kenya and Zimbabwe, we are also working with the Global Partnership for Education on their Girls Education Initiative, which is a social marketing campaign to help communities overcome social and cultural barriers that are keeping girls out of school. And so what that means is we'll be working to do a variety of things in conjunction with the government and private sector partners around mentoring, training for teachers when possible on girls' education and the importance of girls' education, possibly some Wash in Schools projects, as well as, doing any sort of social marketing we can, engaging with strong female Rotarians who can share their stories about growing up and accessing education and the change that made in their lives. And so that's an activity I would ask you to keep your eyes out for, because it's going to be something that's really exciting. Finally, in Uganda, we're going to be working with the GPE in a little bit of a different capacity, and it's to be looking at the domestic financing for education. So one requirement of all countries that work within the GPE's context is that they have to dedicate a certain percentage of their budget to education each year. And the Rotarians in Uganda are going to be working with the government to ensure that the annual budget is allocated for education, and also that it's equitably distributed throughout the country. And this is a role that the Ugandan Rotarians have emphasized as important to them to be doing, and something that we are hoping that they're able to do and to do successfully, and that we support them in. They probably will also participate in some of the girls' social marketing campaign events or activities that we plan to do, but that is to be determined. And for now, Rotary and GPE are really focused on sub-Saharan Africa due to the amount of activity that's occurring there as well as the need, but we're open to working in other countries. So if you believe that your country is interested in participating in some activities similar to this, please contact me. And while this is a recording, I'm still happy to answer your questions. So if you have any questions, please feel free to email me at maryjo.jeanfrancois@rotary.org. And I'm always happy to answer any questions that Rotarians may have. It's been a pleasure to speak with you today, and I look forward to working together to learn more about the projects that you're doing and to help guide you along the way. Thank you very much.
Now, the time to present the projects related to the focus area of education and literacy has arrived. The global grant projects and club-to-club projects will be presented in video with a maximum length of 5 minutes. If you are interested in any of the projects, you can just find the details on our website, www.rotaryinkaprojectsfair.org. If you have any doubts or inquiries, you can contact us in the same website, indicating the project of your interest. Ha llegado el momento de presentar los proyectos que corresponden al área de interés de alfabetización y educación básica. Los proyectos para la subvención global y los proyectos Club a Club serán presentados en videos con un máximo de 5 minutos de duración. Si usted está interesado en alguno de estos proyectos, los detalles los puede encontrar en nuestra página web www.rotaryinkaprojectfair.org. Y si tuviera dudas o quisiera realizar alguna consulta, puede hacerlo a través de la misma página indicando el proyecto de su interés. So now, let's start with our first project. This project is presented by Rotary Club La Molina, School Classrooms Equipped for Schools. Ya ha llegado el momento de presentar nuestro primer proyecto, que es presentado por Rotary Club La Molina, aulas escolares equipadas para la escuela.
Rotary Club La Molina presents implementation of prefabricated implemented classrooms for school Los Jardines de Manchay project. Geographic location. This project takes place in Manchay, Lima, Peru, in South America. Manchay is located southeast of Lima, Peru. It is inhabited mainly by families of low socioeconomic level. Manchay is an area of poverty. The children of the Manchay area have the school Los Jardines de Manchay as a great opportunity to study and improve. Rotary Club La Molina focus areas. Rotary Club La Molina works in the Rotary area of interest in basic education and literacy. What is this project about? This new project consists of equipping primary school students with prefabricated classrooms so that the children of the Los Jardines de Manchay school can study. This project was born due to the increase in the number of students at the Los Jardines de Manchay school. It consists of providing students with prefabricated classrooms equipped with student desks, chairs, and individual tables, wardrobe, and blackboards so that young primary school children can study and disperse in the classrooms. Also, they must be ventilated, especially now to prevent the spread of diseases. The beneficiaries will be students, teachers, and poor families. The required local investment is $10,000 United States dollars. In order to follow Rotary focus areas, we have visited the school of Los Jardines de Manchay. We have supported the school for years, and there is always a constant communication with them. We know the school and its shortcomings. In this new rotating period, we have made phone and Zoom calls with the principal and the parents, and they have told us that they have many needs. But because of the increase in the number of primary school students, it is urgent to disperse the classrooms and for them to be ventilated, especially now to prevent the spread of diseases. They need ventilated classrooms to allow children to study with minimum biosecurity conditions, so it is important to have new classrooms for primary school children. The children are poor, they only have that school to study in, and now the number of students has increased, So with the project, the children will study in more ventilated spaces without the danger of contagion of diseases, because they are very close together in small environments. In addition, education will be favored because with this, the children will be able to study with the assigned teachers, and they will be able to improve the educational level, and the families will be happy. The school is committing to the sustainability of the project, care, conservation, good use, maintenance, and replacement of materials in case of deterioration of the materials received. This project requires a social investment of 10,000 United States dollars.
Thank you, Rotary Club La Molina. And from Lima, we will travel to Cusco to present our second project. This project is presented by Rotary Club Cusco, Visionary Education. Es el turno ahora de presentar nuestro proyecto número 2. Y así viajamos de Lima hacia Cusco virtualmente. Nuestro proyecto número 2 es presentado por Rotary Club Cusco, Educación Visionaria.
Well, now we are Rotary Club Cusco. In this opportunity, we are presenting you the project Visionaria program for educational institutions. Okay. According to official sources of Contraloría General de la República, in Peru, the corruption cost us, the citizens, approximately 23 billion soles per year, equals twice the annual budget of the Ministry of Development and Social Inclusion. Okay, it's a big problem. Then what can we do about it? Well, just with this Visionaria program for educational institutions, we can contribute to give some solutions to this problem in the long time. Okay, the Visionary program for educational institutions aims to promote quality educations and equal opportunities that promotes the strengthening of capacities and social skills of youth, providing them with resources that allow them to identify and understand the problem of interest in their communities, promoting the active exercises of their citizenship. In this sense, the program focuses on comprehensive formative training and pedagogical accompaniment to teachers in the area of personal development, citizenship, and civics of the third grade of public schools in the Cusco region, Peru. Okay, and it's important to say that Visionary has an agreement with the regional government of educational of Cusco. Yes, and the budget, as you can see, is $29,510. Thank you for all, and we are waiting any comment about this project. Goodbye.
Thank you, Rotary Club Cusco. And now, American proverb says, education is a gift that none can take away. Un proverbio americano nos dice, la educación es un regalo que nadie te puede quitar. We would like to thank you for your attendance, and before you leave today, we would like you to enjoy our marinera limeña. Agradecemos por su presencia, y antes que se retire, nos gustaría que disfruten con nosotros de una típica marinera limeña.
Cordón antiguo, como el de atrás.
traigo para regalarte, sí, caramba, traigo para regalarte, sí. Es lo más grande que tengo para cantar, para bailar, caramba, qué otra cosa puedo darte, sí, caramba, marinera, 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 sí, cosa que no se compra ni que se vende, para cantar, para bailar, caramba, de mi pecho se desprende, sí, caramba, no se compra ni que se vende así, ni que se vende, madre, lo que yo canto, para cantar, para bailar, caramba, es para gusto, a gusto dueño del santo, sí, caramba, muchos años, celebremos tu cumpleaños, ay sí.
Que ninguno se le atreva, ni se le haga el buen doctor, porque él es el señor de la marinera, don Augusto Acues Villanueva. Tumba que tumba la paloma. A rebalarse, pero con cuidado porque alguien se lava el piso.
Pues dueño del santo, hoy te he venido a felicitar. Hoy día 7 de octubre, fiel a tu puerta mi amistad. Me llaman para muda y cerrada, y he recordado que ya no estás. 7 de octubre, te he venido a saludar. 7 de octubre, te he venido a festejar. Salgan todos a cantar, cabece compa, serenata, serenata te voy a dar, cabece compa, serenata, serenata te voy a dar, rompan filas sentimientos, salgan todos a cantar, cabece compa, serenata, serenata te voy a dar, cabece compa, serenata, serenata te voy a dar, rompan filas sentimientos y volvamos a cantar. Cabece compa, serenata, serenata te voy a dar. Cabece compa, serenata, serenata, donde has ido a celebrar.